Hello everybody, welcome back to Northernlion Plays Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. We're on a little streak here of 0. That's a new one. What's up with that? Check this out though. We got Burkano. You gotta start somewhere. There's your, oh my lord. There's your seed indicator. I will say, as far as losses go, the last one did hurt me. But at the same time, I also can't deny, I really can't deny that I think that there was a win resting inside of it. But it was definitely one of those losses that had me, like, rush into the Discord to, you know, get some validation. I was like, wait, I can't believe they made this game, and then there's, like, so many items in it that you can't even get damage upgrades anymore, because you got so many freaking shot speed upgrades, and, you know, there's 900 items from bosses that do nothing. They, you know, belly button, I mean, you know, there's a, what's the one that's, like, the Lucky Penny, it's just, like, so many items, also known as 2 items, that when you pick them up from the boss, they don't give you anything. Why are they in the game? So it sent me on a soul-searching journey, and then I kind of came to the conclusion, you know, you're just being a little bit of a baby, so let's just get back to it. Speaking of baby, today is a big milestone. Our daughter is, well, I mean, she turned 2 months old a few days ago, as of the time of this recording. However, we had this, we were all set up, you know, we were the typical first-time parents who were like, we over-prepared. As you know, everybody in the YouTube comments, anytime we talked about it, was like, it's very simple. You just toss them in the mud, and they'll figure it out. You know what? We're on 0. Let's let it ride, brother. I'm willing to take a chance on it. That was suboptimal. But I really wanted to see if we get spirit arts, or maybe we get a bomb, or, you know, etc., etc. But we had the crib built and set up, obviously, but then we also had all these, like, baby toys, you know. We had, like, in particular, this mobile. I don't know if I always get confused with the baby naming convention, whether it's mobile, like Alabama, or mobile, what British people erroneously call cellular telephones, or mobile, I don't know. Regardless, she, until today, she paid no attention to the mobile. In fact, my wife and I, more or less, have used it as, like, an inside joke. Because the songs that they play, while the little animals at the top are whirring around, are just comical. Like, it starts with, like, a jazz version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So it goes like, a-doo-ga-doo. Do 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 do, a doogie 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 doo doo, dun 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 do 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 do, scoo doo 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 doo, which is just like a very kind of comical, overly sauced take on what you would ever need out of something like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's a little much, is all I'm trying to say, I suppose. This is a really good time to get this, actually, and that's a really good time to get that saved, a little saved. And then, like, that's not even where it really starts to hit, because after that it has, like, genuinely, like, a bass clarinet lick, which is just, like, is so overly ambitious for, like, a song that a baby's gonna be listening to, but it genuinely has, like, a jazz lick that's like scoop doop ba doo 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 doo, and you're like, this, come on, man, it's for a freaking baby. You're not trying to play for the Boston Pops or something like that. Anyway, long story short, we've made fun of it and you know, talked about the fact that, honestly, like, we've heard the songs so much more than the baby at this point that, like, hold on, we'll do this first. We've heard the song so much more than the baby at this point that we're sick of it. And yet today, in her moment of crying, I turned on the mobile, and wouldn't you know it, I thought that was a lucky penny. I had turned on the mobile, and wouldn't you know it, she was jamming out. She was going like, which is like baby and dolphin for I like. Anyway, trying to just up the joke density a little bit. So it's a landmark day. The baby, I'm not going to say the baby can entertain herself. All I'm going to say is that the baby has some degree of conscious awareness now to at least understand, like, hey, this thing exists. Which really puts it into perspective that for, like, the first 2 months of her life, there was, like, you know, very, very little awareness. She's like, that's mommy, that's daddy, that's grandma. And then, apart from that, you know, your mileage may vary. This run is Pog City, by the way. We're entering the opposite of the danger zone, and I feel good. So yeah, it's a Tuesday today. Tuesdays are interesting stream days now, because Daniel and I are doing a project called Gex, the Golden Egg Challenge series, where two average gaming dads, or perhaps even below average at gaming, I would like to think above average at fatherly duties, but we try to do amazing feats in games, and if we fail, we get outrageous punishments. And if we succeed, we get nothing except for delaying the punishment for a little bit. It's an interesting, one of the worst trade deals in the history of deals. We will take that, but that's okay. So we've done 3 so far. We lost Rocket League. We did not win. I think we were supposed to win 10 games of Rocket League. We did not win 10 games of Rocket League. We didn't even come close in Fortnite to getting a dub, which is fair. This week we are playing Call of Duty Warzone, and I gotta tell you, my percentage chance of getting a dub in Warzone is pretty low. But you know, that's like the philosophy behind the videos, is let's do these things that are kind of like a low percentage chance, you know? And if we succeed, that's that much more amazing. You know, Dan and I have won a couple of Fortnite duos together in the past. We have been parts of wins for, and we've done our part in some Warzone victories for Team Unity, but definitely, you know, not, I mean, you gotta acknowledge the fact that we were not the linchpin of the team in most situations. But anyway, regardless of that, it should be fun today. We did win Super Smash Bros. Last week. And it was an actual fairly comfortable win, which was surprising to me as well. So we didn't have to eat awful tasting jelly beans. But this week, if we don't win Call of Duty, we gotta eat awful tasting jelly beans. Why recycle the punishment? Because we bought the jelly beans. What am I gonna do with these jelly beans if not eat them, you know? It's not like I'm gonna be like, oh, we got through it, now let's throw them in the trash, you know? Mind you, after smelling the inside of the jelly bean tin, I do want to kind of throw them in the trash. And it's a very visceral way to describe it. I apologize. Oh, that's so nice. It's like the sun just came up. But I described the smell of the tin as a rat made of cheese dying inside of a hot durian. And it's honestly, like, I'm not, and I've said this before about picky eating stuff, I'm not that much of a baby about picky eating, you know. When people are like, I don't like this, I don't like that, and it sends them into the stratosphere, I disagree. I've been there, don't get me wrong, as a child, for sure. As an adult, whenever people are like, I'm not a really big fan of, like, tomatoes, I'm like, just get, it's food, dummy, it's vitamins. Like, I get it might be, like, kind of not your favorite taste, but it's still food. By the way, I'm going to talk in a second about how I'm a hypocrite based on the dinner I had last night. So don't get mad just yet. Let me just see what we got here. Deal with the devil wise. Doesn't exist. Easy enough. But there's a difference. So first off, I did eat some of the beans out of curiosity. And yeah, some of them are pretty bad. But like, that doesn't make me the hypocrite. Because I was talking about food. Some of these jelly beans are like vomit. Poison. You know, like, bleach, they're just terrible flavors. They're not designed, I mean, they're designed to be edible, but the flavor is not designed to be pleasant. You know, the fact that it has a flavor is like nature's accident. But why am I a hypocrite? Well, so we've been eating a lot of Korean food lately. I love Korean food. if we were to talk about, like, best cuisines on the planet, I don't know if I would put, for my personal taste, I don't know if I would put Korean #1, but it would be high up on the list, okay? Love so many Korean soups, obviously stuff like Korean barbecue, but like Korean rice-based dishes as well. Not an enormous fan, although I you know, I eat it from time to time, of bibimbap, but, you know, the dupbops and bokkeumbap and nobody knows the difference. You ask people what's the difference between a dupbop and a bokkeumbap, you'll get, you know, 100 different answers. So, you know, it's the fried with the sauce or without. It's the same thing. Like, there's like 5 different kinds of Korean soups. There's jigaes, there's tongs, there's like anyway, there's a lot. Let me put it that way. And if you ask someone, hey, what's the difference between like a jjigae and a tong? They're gonna be like, what's the difference between what's the difference between Solentong in principle and Yukgaejang in principle? You know, you're gonna get 100 different answers. I don't know. I'm just flexing the fact that I know some Korean food names, I guess. I mean, I did live there for a year, not knowing the names of foods. Like, that would put me at below the bare minimum level of survival. So it's just foods. 2 beers, please. Can I go to, or where is your bathroom? And then also, 실례합니다, 쓰레기 봉투 주세요. Which is when you go to the convenience store and you ask for garbage bags. Because they don't, you gotta, for some reason, you gotta get the garbage bags behind the counter. I guess it's like, you know how we in North America have like razor blades behind glass because people might steal it and they're worth a lot of money. I guess garbage bags are the analog in South Korea. But anyway, so we've been eating a lot of Korean food. And some of it comes kind of like via this prepared menu, so we don't really get a 100% choice of what's in it, but it's always been great. Hold on, I gotta sneeze. Told you. It's always been great. And then, like, when this last batch kind of arrived, the star of the show was a Korean dish that I have never had before, but am very familiar with because I've chosen not to have it on multiple occasions. It's called Beondegi. Now, it translates almost, at least in terms of like its theme, as the Korean army stew. And the origins of it are actually really interesting from like a food history standpoint. I know that sounds kind of nerdy, but you know, a lot of Korean culture and cuisine is influenced by the fact that, I mean, it has a huge traditional history as well, but then also, like, during the Korean War, you know, when all the, I was going to say American soldiers, but, you know, it's more than American soldiers, Canadian soldiers as well. Admittedly, I don't know other countries that were in the Korean War, so I apologize if I've left your country out, but, you know, they came over and, you know, they brought some food with them, but also based on their rations, it kind of changed, Korean tastes a little bit, and it's had an influence on the cuisine. So that's one of the reasons like Spam is so popular in South Korea, is because it was part of the American Army rations. And also like American cheese is kind of like bizarrely popular in Korea. Like when I lived there, it was 2010, or 2011, which seemed pretty modern at the time, but now is like antiquated. But really, if you went to like the cheese section of a Korean supermarket, it was like a bunch of different American cheese analogs, and then like one block of quote-unquote real cheese that was just called like orange. I'm assuming it's a little bit more, you know, it's become a little bit more globalized since then. But anyway, tastes change over time, right? But anyway, so basically this soup is a spicy stew. And the ingredients are, if you have the same kind of sensibilities as me, the ingredients are going to explain very quickly why I had never consumed it before. Hot dogs, Spam, and or ham. Basically various pork products, like maybe some bologna, like genuinely like the cheapest hot dogs you could possibly find. Spam, pepperoni, etc., etc. So yeah, is a hot dog soup, more or less, is one way to describe it. Or a Spam-based soup. And then on top of that, usually like there's baked beans, you know, like sweet baked beans. Inside of it, it's like a bright red soup. The baked beans are kind of a weird touch, but you can understand culturally how it happened. Usually, also instant noodles, like instant ramen noodles, added to the broth to cook them inside of the broth. And sometimes, slash oftentimes, finished with 1 to 2 slices of American cheese on top of the whole soup and then stirred in. So you know, I do have to say, it hits uniquely cursed parts of my brain, if that makes sense. Like, I like beans. I don't really like baked beans. I like hot dogs, but I mean, I don't really like, I understand how this sounds, don't get me wrong. I don't really like super cheap hot dogs, unless there's like a bun and some condiments. Like, I've eaten my fair share of, like, boiled hot dogs served in, like, you know, white bread, because we didn't have any hot dog buns. Not out of, like, economic necessity, necessarily. I'm not trying to, you know, say that I was brought up in a, you know, without a silver spoon in my mouth. However, you know, sometimes just due to convenience or happenstance. You know, you're at Grandma's house, she's like, you want a hot dog? You're like, yeah, sure, Grandma. And she starts boiling some water, and you're, like, too polite to say, never mind. Anyway, I mean, let me put it, you don't want to eat those, like, you know, most of the time you don't want to eat those 10-cent hot dog wieners, you know, just on their own, right? Like, you wouldn't, like, sous vide one and then hit it with a reverse sear and slice it up like sashimi and be like, oh, delightful, you can really taste the nitrates, right? And then, like, on top of that, I hate American cheese unless it's, like, on a crappy hamburger. Like, I think crappy cheese on a crappy hamburger elevates both products to something greater than the sum of their parts. And then, I hate to say it, not really a big fan of instant noodles either. And that's not like a health flex. I ate a lot of instant noodles when I lived in Korea. That was out of economic necessity. If you wake up at noon on a Sunday, maybe you're a little, you've overindulged in some adult beverages the night before. Doesn't get much better than a 79-cent breakfast with no nutritional value whatsoever, but like 15 times your daily recommended allotment of salt. You know what? I mean, we got Spirit Hearts, so just take me out. I think we're ready to go here. So, and, you know, not my favorite foods is basically what I was getting at. But I'm a man of my word. I thought to myself, I'm probably not gonna like this. But you never know until you try it. And then I tried it, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't like it. Now, I know what you might be saying. NL? It's food, dummy. It's not poison. It's designed to be. It's vitamins. Well, some sort of. I don't know. I guess I hit my wall. My wall is Beondegi. It's funny, too, because you might think that, like, because it sounds so bizarre to North American palates, that Beondegi is, like, you know, a niche food in Korea. It's definitely not, like, a niche food. I don't know if I would say it's, like, one of the most popular foods in the country. I guess it depends where you get the list, you know? How deep is the list gonna go? If you're talking about, is it one of the top 5 most popular foods in the country? No. Is it in the top 50? I would say at that point you probably stand a pretty good chance, but regardless, that's where I hit my limit. It had been a long time, and you know, I got over it, you know? I ate, like, you know, half of the meal, and then Kate said you didn't finish, and I said, actually, I did. And she was like, yeah, I get it. It's been a long time since I had a meal that I didn't like to the point where I actually didn't finish the whole thing. Usually, even if I don't really like the meal, I just eat it all, because having food in your mouth tastes better than not having food in your mouth, even if it doesn't taste great. It's long been my hypothesis, but I found my limit. I don't know, maybe it's an acquired taste. I also do, though, I come up with the sentiment here. I'm like, maybe there's a reason we weren't making this in North America when all the ingredients were readily available to us to begin with. But, you know, different cultures, different tastes, for sure. There's a lot of things that I'm sure are like, you know what's funny to me? Is that, and it's not funny like, oh, like look at these weirdos. It's almost like the opposite. Look at me, I'm a weirdo. When people talk about like some foods being gross because of how unhealthy they are, I actually wish that I had that reaction kind of built into me, if that makes sense. I will abstain sometimes from eating foods that are truly awful for you. But it's not out of a sense of like, oh, it would be gross to eat that. It's more out of a sense of like, I should not eat that because it's bad for me. People who have a, like, I remember when the KFC Double Down sandwich came out, people were actually like, and if you're not familiar with what the Double Down is, the Double Down is it is a chicken sandwich. Like, imagine like a Chick-fil-A or the Popeyes chicken sandwich, but then the buns were pieces of fried chicken, and then the insides of the sandwich were bacon and like cheese and some kind of mayonnaise-driven sauce. Hold on, this is an important moment. Oh, dude, we'll absolutely go purity on this. Easy money. I remember people being like, that's disgusting, I'm repulsed, yada yada yada. I'm being 100% sincere when I say I genuinely am jealous and envious of the fact that you feel disgust upon looking at that sandwich. I would be disgusted with myself if I ate the sandwich too many times, although I will also say this is coming from a different, I mean, it's obviously not good for you, but it's coming from a different era where people were like, buns are good for you, and meat is bad, you know? I mean, admittedly, you know, probably deep-fried KFC chicken breasts are not what you would consider maybe keto-friendly, but anyway, regardless, you know, nutritional attitudes, not markedly different maybe, but slightly different for sure. But I was like, dude, if I had a KFC within walking distance of me when I was in university, I would have been like, I would have tried it for sure. I mean, there's been situations where like, in college, I went to, they still had the Pizza Hut lunch buffet close to campus. I swear to you, I know how unbelievable this story is. I went to the KFC, or the Pizza Hut lunch buffet on like a Friday at 11. I ate at least 8 slices of pizza and was still not hungry, but I still felt like I was not disgusted, like I still had room. It hasn't happened to me many times in my life, but I was like a bottomless pit that day. I told people the story thinking they would be like, that's really cool. Instead, they were like, gross. Which I understand at a logical level, but I'm like, I don't know. I just don't have that same kind of visceral reaction, I guess, to gross things. So instead, I bring it up to basically, you know, because I feel like there might have been some laughter, like, whoa, instant noodles? Spam? In a soup? That's gross. But like, in North America, you know, depending on your perspective, we eat a lot of gross stuff, too. Like, and the other thing is, you know, if you ask, you know, 1,000 North Americans what you think is gross, you're gonna get a bunch of different answers. You know, some people would be like, this is probably true worldwide, but, you know, some people would be like, oh, Spam in soup? That's disgusting. Some people would be like, ew, lettuce? Gross. You know, like, you gotta recognize, I think, that every culture has some gross foods. Even if the grossness kind of, it changes category, you know what I mean? I mean, there's some Korean food that I've eaten it. I would not recommend it to the average consumer. One of them is Beondegi. It's silkworm pupa. And what does it taste like? I don't know, it's kind of like, not trying to just like make it sound worse than it is. It just tastes like squishy dirt. It's very, very, very earthy. And if you wanted to amp up the grossness a little bit, you can get like real Beondegi, like from a food stall at the side of the road. It might be like, they might fry it and it's a little crispy and, you know, it has some actual flavor, but a lot of the Beondegi that's served is legitimately just like from a can. You're eating canned insects. It's the bottom of the barrel. I understand environmentally the value, by the way. Culinarily. Let me put it this way. I've eaten, at this point, more insects than the average person watching this, by having eaten 2, which is to say I've had Beondegi, and I've also had some cricket, in the form of, like, cricket-based protein powder. So I'm a believer in the insect revolution. That doesn't mean you have to, like, not gussy the insect up at all, you know? If you could just, like, add, like, literally any kind of love to the food, instead of just being like, yeah, it's canned bugs. Anyway. Would not recommend. For the average person... By the way, there are going to be, like, some weirdos listening to this that are going to be like, sounds good. I get it. You're a contrarian. Canned bugs? Yum! Alright. I mean, you can eat the canned bugs. That's fine. But I just never want to hear you say, like, you know, mustard? Gross! If you can't handle, like, Dijon mustard or, like, you know, oyster mushrooms or something, you're not ready for the bugs. That's all I'm saying. I'm not a huge mushroom fan. I would eat the mushrooms 10 out of 10 times before having more Beondegi. But then there's also some Korean food that kind of sounded gross by North American sensibilities, but was actually delicious. Chicken feet. Mostly it's due to the sauce that they're in. The foot itself doesn't have that much culinary value, but chicken feet, delicious. Now I'm like, I can't find that many more that fit my sensibilities. Because I'm like, well, there's another Korean dish called makjang, which is like pork intestine. Every time I had it, which was like 4 times, it just tasted like unleaded gasoline. Obviously, I've never consumed unleaded gasoline. I mean, I've consumed it, just not like with my mouth. Okay, now it sounds even weirder. What I meant is I've driven a car. I've driven a car on an internal combustion engine, and so I have, yes, consumed gasoline, but I have never, as a human being, consumed gasoline with my digestive tract. I think we've made it even weirder. But yeah, makjang, not a huge fan. But anyway, I don't know. All this, I feel like Weird Al's song Albuquerque off of the 1999 album Running with Scissors. This whole, you know, what I really mean to say is, I don't like Beondegi. That's really all I'm trying to get at here. We should probably try to kill you last. But if you do, hey, more power to you. Okay, I was going to say, Succubus is taking you out one way or the other. They're going to find you. They're going to get you one way. I hate that I lost my purity bonus. I wasn't even paying attention to it at all. Well, you know what? This is a nice Isaac episode to kind of get back on the horse. We had some dubious, well, really not some dubious runs. We had a dubious run. And you're always worried about the idea that maybe, like, is this like where we're going to go on an Isaac hiatus until the DLC comes out? Then it helps a lot momentum-wise to just get another, to get back on the horse quickly with a pretty decent run. This one was a lot of fun. Yo, this is a pretty good rate of fire. So anyway, yeah, that's my philosophy on Korean food. If I had to pick a cuisine to be my favorite food of all time, or my favorite cuisine of all time, that's tough, man. Like, I'd have to think about it more, for sure. Because, like, Korean food would be up there. I gotta be honest, I think one of the most common foods in, or cuisines in North America that would be chosen is Italian food. I'm just not that big of a... I like pasta, but I don't really like... I'm not in love with tomato-driven pastas, which kind of puts me at a you know, I undervalue it relative to the norm, I think. So, I don't know, I'd have to think about it more. I'll tell you one thing, though. It's potato-driven. For now, thanks for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode. If you did, click the like button. It helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. See ya.